Okay, and when it comes to HTML editors and so forth, this little program here called Brackets, is actually quite good. And this is written completely, believe it or not, in CSS, HTML, and JavaScript. So 100%. But what's interesting about it is it'll call up another browser, and this is its own browser. It's supposedly Google Chrome, I think, but it doesn't identify, so it won't. It's like a lightweight version of what I have going on here. You can see all the stuff I've got set up here. Well, this is like a very plain Jane version of it, but it is Chrome. So, but it won't be the same. It won't. It'll be independent, of your account. So it's almost like an anonymous browser or something. So, but what's interesting is, and what I like about this program is, oops, okay, excuse me. What I like about this program, if I can find my bearings here, what the hell is going on? Yeah, right here. That's kind of weird. Okay, yeah, that's the metadata I was looking at. Yeah, but what's kind of neat about it is, well, when it's functioning right. See, this isn't actual in proper form. This code here, this represents this, because this actually gets into a little thing that you got to keep in mind with this bracket software, that it works if you refresh it. So I can like delete the word table, for example, and refresh it, and then voila, you're good to go. Undo it and refresh it. But the thing is that if you look at this code, I mean, it's actually missing all the elements of an HTML, a proper HTML program. So this is actually kind of a benefit that this program works this way, because you can kind of tell if you're missing something fundamental here, because it could be that some browsers this may not even work right because it's an incomplete HTML program. So it kind of helps you catch little things like that. But it's like I said, I don't even have the HTML or the body or the head or or the document type or whatnot called out on this. So, but you look at something like this. Okay, well, I actually do have the proper headings and so forth. So, I got a doc type called up here. It's got HTML, and then the head, and then we got some scripts defined in here. Quite a few of them, for JavaScript, although it doesn't identify it as JavaScript specifically, but it's kind of the default, I suppose. Several functions, and then we start our body, and then on load, it runs our JavaScript. This JavaScript you see here. But this has got the appropriate stuff here. So as a result, I can like delete something, and you can see as I type it over here, it's reflected over here. So and that works even to some extent with with JavaScript and so forth. So although sometimes you'll have to refresh, it just depends. Because it's not supposed to actually work with JavaScript, but let's see, function draw. Okay, so yeah, I'll just get rid of a couple of these, and we'll see what it does. Okay, so I got rid of something here. But basically it hasn't updated over here because it's JavaScript. But if I go refresh, then voila. So if you're doing JavaScript, you'll usually have to refresh it. But again, not always. You'll be surprised. You'll be surprised sometimes that it, will actually update. So, it just depends. It depends on what you're doing with it. But say generally speaking, you don't, see it updating itself. So with JavaScript, but again, with other types of content, in HTML and so forth. I mean, you can, for example, come down to this and, add a paragraph. How did that happen? It doesn't matter, but okay, I guess it makes a liar out of me. But generally speaking, it is, it does work well. I'm trying to figure out why that didn't work. Okay, now for some animations. Okay. Well, that's strange. It should be on the end of the document, I would think. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm still learning HTML, but still. Huh. I don't know. It's strange. Why wouldn't that work? Okay. Put all that stuff in there, and that's all I get. That's all the things I get. See, canvas. Oh, well, there's a canvas bracket missing. That's what's going on. Okay. Voila. Okay, so maybe this thing will work now. So there you go. Okay. So, but basically, you can see I just added that and that again, and and it did it live. Let's see. So let's go test our code again, because that had a bug in it. So because of that, that may have prevented some of the tests I was running earlier from working, because I didn't know I left that bracket out. So yeah, it looks like it's the same. Okay, so well, anyway, so for the most part, when you modify code, you gotta, do the refresh thing. So otherwise, it won't work. But, when it comes to HTML, it generally will. So you don't have to save every time, by the way. It's just, I just kind of like to do that, because sometimes when you're adding, like scripts and so forth, sometimes, especially if you're starting with a blank document, sometimes you need to save it first. But generally, if you've got a document going, you don't need to worry about that. But at any rate, it's a pretty cool little editor. I mean, I like that. It's a good substitute for a live editor, online. And why I like it is because, it basically has code completion. So see what I mean? I can see, what options I have here, and just press enter, and and I don't know how this works, but but the point is it has code completion in it, and you don't have to like doing it on the internet, you don't have to, like copy your code back into an editor like Visual Studio over here, and then so you've automatically got a copy of it. Now there is a caveat to this. When you first use it, again, it'll usually install itself in your program files, meaning you won't have the ability to save documents to that folder, and so you'll naturally want to go create another little area where you work on your HTML stuff on your computer, right? That that you can write files to or save documents to, etc. The problem is when you do that, and you like pull the file up or just save a file from here, you're going to find that this lightning bolt doesn't work, and it's going to aggravate the piss out of you, because when you first start this program, it's actually going to come with a built-in demo of its little instructions, so the basic building blocks of HTML. So, well, no, not that, but at any rate, it'll come with its own little inbuilt instructions, so that is actually live, so you can actually screw around with their instruction booklet, but it won't allow you to save it. So, again, you'll have to, save it to a different directory, but then you're going to find out the thing doesn't work, and that's because the fact of the matter is that you've got to go actually open the folder, okay, that you create elsewhere on your hard drive. Otherwise, this thing won't recognize it. It's got to know what folder you're saving the document to, for whatever reason. But that's just how it worked. But that was making me pull my hair out, not knowing that. So that's just a little word of advice. You'll think this damn thing's broken, but in fact, it's just you got to set your folder, to what you're working on. So this is the folder you're referencing. This is everything in that folder right now. So, so if I go like save as, for example, you can see the folder. Okay, see, that's where I've got the folder, and there's all the stuff in it that this thing recognizes. So, including that directory. But anyway, that'll save you from pulling some hair out right there. And as far as website software goes, and by the way, you might have been noticing how I did this code, and it's unconventional to do this where you lay it out, mix HTML with JavaScript and so forth, and that's because different people usually end up working on different aspects of it. The thing is that when you actually look at a web page, well, that's how it's listed. Let's Control Shift N. Oh, whoops. No, not Control Shift N. Control Shift C. Okay, so if you look at this code, this has got a big mixture of classes, and mostly a lot of this is HTML. Well, this may have been a bad example. Hold on. Yeah, this is a pretty static page, I guess. May not have been a good example. You'd think it has some JavaScript attached to it, though. I don't know. Maybe it works differently than I think it does. But maybe they have some kind of references here. But anyway, I've seen certainly lots of web pages, though, that you go to them and, well, you look at their code and it's like, just got all kinds of gibberish in it, and it's, most of it's JavaScript if you actually look at it closely enough. So usually it's combined, all into one area when you view the page source. So see, here's, for example, script. Alright, this is probably some JavaScript right here. Then you got whatever this is, and it's certainly some HTML, but I don't know what some of these functions are. But here's some more script. So I mean, normally this is how you see the web page, and that's why it's kind of more natural to work on it this way, so you can get used to looking at it this way. Because you may have to debug this crap, or if you want to like learn how somebody else does something, you go to their website, but you got to get used to looking at it. But the problem is you'll end up with a lot of crap like this, which is like, I don't know, that's like some kind of an encryption string or whatever. It's what it looks like. You'll end up with some stuff that's like all on one line or big blocks of lines like this. So that gets kind of crazy. Like this is a script, and this is most often how you see scripts. That's because for some reason somebody didn't somebody did it this way. I mean, I don't know why they bunched it up like this, or even how they did it, but you end up with big blocks like that. So it's kind of hard to look at some of this stuff because of how it's done. Let's see. Now I'm trying to see what this is. This is just metadata right here. So it's probably in the, let's see, you got doc type, HTML. Here's the head, title, href. Okay. Okay. This is commented out. Okay, body, and it's the completion of the head, so here's where the body starts. So yeah, all this is just header, or the part of the head information. And here's the body from down here, so which is certainly more legible than the head. Commented out code. But like I said, this is how you'll often see code. That's why I like to do this, but it is combined, and this is how you combine it. You just basically up in the head you've got to put well, no, that's a bad example. You can see this doesn't have any JavaScript in it, but it does have some CSS, although this isn't formatted well. I assume there's some kind of a formatter, because you can get add-ons for this, and I've got just like one or two small add-ons, but you haven't seen them yet. But generally this is pretty stock, this program is. So but this right here is CSS, so so that's you'd normally put that between these style brackets, but conventionally you'd put it in a separate file, and that's traditionally how it's done. But again, for the sake of this stuff, I kind of like keeping it all together because I'm really trying to learn, and it's better to have this stuff all together when you're trying to first learn this, to see how it all functions together. So because again, there are different styles and different ways of doing it, but I'm telling you, when you normally see stuff in the wild, it's going to be like this. So it'll be more like this style because it's all going to be one big document, so it's good to be able to look at it this way too. But again, you got that, but see, this isn't even done properly. That's why I said it's a bad example. See, this kind of is done properly, but there's no style. I don't have any CSS in here. But you got your HTML, your head, okay, and then some metadata, and we start with a script, script block, and then you close the script block there, and then the head, and then you start the body, and then you finish it off with HTML. So that's basically proper, for the how to lay one of these out so you can play with all three in the same document. And by the way, another thing, and this is one of the things that, I mean, I probably ought to cover this in a separate video, but it kind of drives you crazy because when you first are trying to learn how websites are done, you get the impression that everything is done in a text editor. Well, that, couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, there are plenty of editors, built in like this, this Open Element. This is a free text editor. It's actually running on my computer, so it's really I don't know that it's offline because you still got to get templates from their website, but they got a lot of them that are free. So and they don't offer hosting services, so you can host it with whoever you want, GoDaddy or whatever. Um, I still haven't figured out how. Well, I do know how these guys make money. They have premium templates too, so. And they actually do have a paid version of this program too for like 150 or 200 bucks, something like that. It really wasn't that bad, surprisingly. It's not rentware, so thank God. But I can't wait till companies that do the rentware, like Autodesk and Adobe, or have their ass suit off. I can't wait for that to happen, because that's going to happen one of these days. They deserve it. I can't imagine, companies and small businesses, that have, like a huge database, of like, work done in, AutoCAD or Adobe, are just kind of stuck, they either got to pay, Autodesk rent, which is pretty absorbent, if you look what they charge on a monthly basis for that crap. Or you got to try to like convert all your stuff, to some new format somewhere, and hope they don't do the same damn thing to you. So, that's just BS. I can't stand rentware. But in any event, you got these little editors. They're pretty cool. I mean, I haven't really looked deeply into this, but this you can do some pretty nice stuff with these types of editors. And these are, basically what they call no-code editors. So you don't really have to code at all, technically, to make a functional website. Let's see. I thought I had this running, and I think I do, but the preview here. But here, I'll run it again. So basically, this is, in this gibberish pig Latin or whatever the hell they call that. But like I said, it shows you how the site works. It's got that little scrolling window thing, and a bunch of pages, predefined, and it's a template, but you can start from scratch too. But they got several pages like galleries and stuff like that already predefined. So just go put your own graphics in it, and then you can look at the code and modify it as you need to if you know HTML and all that on top of that, and it gives you a starting point. So it's a place you can start, which is kind of the same boat that you're in with WordPress. It gives you a starting point, and by the way, with WordPress, WordPress.com and WordPress.org are not the same thing. So, but WordPress.com is trying to sell you something. I don't know if they have an actual affiliation or not, but WordPress.com is trying to sell you services, that revolve around WordPress apparently, but that's not something that you're going to be able to take and put on your own computer. So on your own web server, for example, if you got one set up on your LAN for for experimental purposes or what have you. Like this, for example, the WordPress test site I did. So it's, but this is running off my local server. So I mean, this code's 100%. I could do anything I want with it. I even tried, and this was kind of an interesting experiment I did. Tab. I wish they would call that something, like the same thing that Google does, so when you accidentally close a tab, it's reopen, close tab. I wish it would just say that. Have some consistency. Anyway, this is actually a website that the graphics were, working as well as they were working yesterday. But at any rate, the fact of the matter is, this is still kind of a copy, an attempt of mine to copy, you know, by saving web page complete. If you click, well, not like right click on that, but you can go, save as web page complete, that kind of thing. But it was my attempt to do that with a site I did on Google Sites. So, and I installed it on my local server just by plopping it into that directory. So, I mean, it doesn't fully work. If you click on these links, it'll take you to my actual site. So, so you can see that in the address bar that that's my actual site. But, so it didn't copy the complete, site, just the page. I thought it did actually. Oh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, it did bring a lot of the graphics with it too. So, although not all of them are showing up, and it's possibly because I got a slow server. I don't know. But anyway, it was an interesting experiment, and it kind of works. So, and you can look at your own code, which is what I guess I did here. So, but this is kind of crappy. I mean, it's these big, long, huge ass lines. So, but at any rate, that was kind of interesting. But but there are other programs, and that's what I was trying to make. Is that you don't have to do everything, and I mean, my God, I would imagine that when it comes to this kind of stuff, that I would imagine that hold on, I'm trying to find something here, but yeah, I'd imagine that oh, that's Mongo database. Well, I was looking for a program that I used to use, well, not use, but it's called Serif Web Plus, which is kind of sort of like this. I thought I had it open still. I guess I closed it. Yeah, I did close it, actually. I got pissed off at it. It's rather complex, but this is like from 2010 or 12 or something like that program. But it's actually kind of like CorelDRAW, and because CorelDRAW actually did have a Corel, had a website creator too at one point apparently. But this has a lot of templates too, that are kind of built into it. And this is a completely offline program. You can use it completely offline. No point in registering because they don't sell it anymore. The company's still in business, but they don't sell this program anymore, not anything like it even. I'm in fact, worse yet, I'm still not quite clear on what they sell. But yeah, this is what pissed me off. This help menu. I don't know how to get it, because this was supposed to be a site navigator, and it was, and then this help thing popped up, and I can't get rid of it. So, anyways, what pissed me off, because I spent like 10 minutes trying to figure out how to get rid of this thing. But it still was a nice little program, though. I mean, it's it actually is not too it's complex as hell, but it's actually not that bad. So when you start looking at it, but I mean, I just kind of ignored it all these years because it's just so overwhelming, to look at. And then I had this icon problem too, because this is a 4K monitor, and these icons are so small I couldn't see them. But if you actually ever have a problem with that, and because you have a 4K monitor with like small icons and stuff, the solution's actually not that bad. Like, take this. Well, that's a bad example. I'll just grab this. I know it's a little bit off screen, but if you open up the properties on it, if you go to compatibility, okay, and then this change high DPI setting. So if you're having problems with it, I think you click this and then put it on System Enhanced, I think. But I'm not having a problem with it, so I don't want to do that. But that's how you fix like little tiny icons, because some programs will do that, especially if they're older. But at any rate, this was, there are programs like that, and these aren't the only two. I mean, there are several offline editors, and there are some online editors like Wix and stuff like that too. So I mean, it's not all in HTML. Is the whole point I'm trying to make. It's you know, you're not going to be constantly just working in the text editor. In fact, you should be fired if you're doing that, because frankly there are more efficient ways of creating websites. And it's like I said, you know, I think in another one of my videos, I mean, a lot of these programs these days actually generate HTML. You can save as HTML, you know, and so forth, and it works to varying degrees. But you know, like I said, there are a lot of options to at least give you something to start with, you know, and to modify. But it's still nice to know how to code and how to read this stuff, because sometimes you're going to have bugs in it, or you might need to embed a YouTube video in it, you know, because they give you like a little code snippet. Well, you got to know how to put it in and put it in and where to put it. So you got to be able to kind of read some HTML for doing some of these things. So you know, I mean, it's good to know, but just don't get the impression that that's the only way to do it, and that's the only way it's done out there, because believe me, it's not. So and again, it kind of just depends on what you're doing with your website. You know, I mean, if it's something really cutting edge and bizarre, you know, yeah, I mean, there might be a lot more text to it than working with, you know, something like this, or you know, or God forbid, Wix or something. With Wix, I mean, I doubt that you can actually modify your crap, but I mean, maybe you can, I don't know, but you know, at least this is kind of on your computer, so I mean, it gives you a starting point, you know, or WordPress or something like that. You know, but at any rate, you know, the point is that you know, that I hope this gave you some, you know, information on editing and kind of getting started with, you know, with HTML. It's not, this isn't really a how to program HTML video as much as it is, because again, I'm still learning myself, but it's pretty simple. So you know, so it's like I said, we'll you know, maybe do some videos on it, on how to, you know, mess with some of this stuff. It'll be very basic, because there's so much of that kind of stuff out on the internet already. You know, explaining, you know, what these various tags are and so forth. So anyway,